recording right now. Thank you, JP.
Wonderful, great. Well, again, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to your thoughts and your ideas on what I'd like to call the challenge method, which is a different way of looking at career development that moves us away from the model of matching teenagers to job titles, pretending like they will keep these job titles for the rest of their lives. I know that intuitively, we know that this is not accurate. It's also causing a lot of pressure and anxiety for our students that we love, and it's not helping them reach their potential. And I think there's a much more exciting way to prepare them for the future of work. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you think this would work in your schools and with the students that you work with. Is that a good way to kick things off?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm getting some thumbs up. I love it. Okay, great. And so I've already got your questions, but I thought we'd start with something quite hands-on. Part one will involve me showing you a series of challenges, problems, and opportunities. And I think it's interactive in the sense of I'm going to ask you to tell me how much these challenges interest you. So one of the ways you can do that is through the challenge rating form that Angela sent you ahead of time. Some of you may have printed this already. And what that would allow you to do is to rate each challenge on a scale from 1 to 5. If you haven't printed it already, maybe you could do it on a blank piece of paper just to write down the name of the challenge, a keyword that reminds you of it, and then leave a little space to rank from 1 to 5. Some of you are doing this strictly on audio. Jenna, Michael, Susan, Renee, I don't know if you're just doing audio, but I'm thinking about what it's like for you to do this. So I'm imagining that you'll listen to the challenge that I've stated, and you may take a note to rate, is this a 5 for me because I'm very interested, or is this a 1 because I'm not interested in it at all, or anything in between? Before we start and I share my screen and I start sharing some challenges, can you either ask me a question to clarify what we're doing, or give me another thumbs up to say, we're ready, we're good to go? I got some thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate those. And I've got, okay, good. I've got thumbs up that's written. Okay, those are good too.
Now, Jenna, Michael, Renee, and Susan, and Anne, although we can't see your video, you can see ours, correct? Yes. Okay. So they can see your screen, well, when you share it, and they can also see. We just can't see them. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So, Angela, can you give me a thumbs up when you see my screen? It says redesign the healthcare system. Good. Okay, great. So very intuitively, can you tell me from 1 to 5, how interested are you in how we can redesign the healthcare system? So those of you who have the challenge rating form, you'll circle a 5 or you'll circle a 1. I'm interested in what you'll have to say. It helps to reduce the static background if everybody who's not talking mutes themselves. Thank you, Carly. I agree. Good. Okay, so we've done redesign the healthcare system. You've put either a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. We're going to move on to the next one. How interested are you in promoting healthy living on a scale from 1 to 5? I'm just going to check if I'm muted or not. No, I'm not muted. Next one, advanced health informatics. So you don't have the context for this one, but think about data, think about e-health, think about hospitals, doctors sharing your information online in a safe and secure way to improve our healthcare system. Perhaps even companies analyzing health data to come up with better approaches to healthcare. Next one is engineering better medicine. This is a huge trend to tailor medicines to specific genes that people have. The more advanced our gene research has become, the more we can create tailored medicines for individuals. And then the last one in this first category is improve mental health. This card is my most popular card amongst all the challenges. It's the one that you young people pick the most. I think we're finally talking about this challenge as a society. So what I'm going to do is I'll pause here just to check with everyone that I'm going at the right pace. I know this is fast. I'm not giving you a lot of time to think through each one very deeply, but at a surface, I hope that you're able to rate between 1 and 5. Can you give me a thumbs up if that was okay? Good pace, thumbs up. Okay, great. Good. Okay, good. Let's keep going. If someone had said slow down, I would have fully respected what you had to say, but it would have been tough to juggle with everybody being okay with it. Okay, so let's keep going. Next one, distribute the wealth. Big topic in politics, thinking about the 1%, thinking about how do we lift people out of poverty. Here's another one, foster sustainable development. This could be a more of a global outlook for this challenge because we're thinking about countries that want to improve their socioeconomic performance. The next challenge is establish fair trade. Donald Trump's got some ideas about how to do this. We may have to define the word fair differently for different people. But establishing fair trade is a very useful tool for a lot of countries to cooperate and help each other out. What about solving new challenges through entrepreneurship? This is particularly motivating for some people in terms of the way they want to work. And then the next one is preparing future leaders. Now, my hunch is that there's a lot of people in this group that are motivated by this one. I know I am specifically because it's exciting. Okay, we're moving on to a new color category. Create new artificial intelligence. How interesting is that to you on a scale of 1 to 5? It's definitely a hot topic right now. Inventing new biotechnology. There are huge advances in synthetic biology, biomimicry. This is a booming field. Collect and use big data. So they say that in the future, when I say they, I mean the futurists and experts I've learned from, that everything will have the internet. That means your table, your chair will have the internet, and they'll be collecting data, and we'll need very bright people to analyze that data to make sense of it. So how can we collect and use big data? Next, advanced virtual reality. We're still a few steps away from realizing the technical potential of virtual reality, but once we do that, imagine all the immersive worlds and all the immersive experiences that businesses and governments will want to create for people for training purposes, for example. Reverse engineer the brain. This is about our understanding of how the brain works. The word neuro anything is very hot right now because we're finally able to see parts of the brain light up, which is a very basic understanding of how the brain works, but it gets people exciting. It makes psychology seem more real when you see pictures of the brain lighting up when you're thinking you're doing something. So how well can we understand the brain and use that to our advantage? The next category, the first card here, is building the school of the future. I imagine that most of you are already working on this challenge, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as to how, if we have time. The next one, protecting society from crime. You know, someone who's thinking about becoming a police officer may gravitate towards this card, but there's so many different ways of doing this. One big topic right now is cybersecurity. Companies can't spend money fast enough trying to protect themselves from different cybersecurity threats. Helping people reach their potential. Again, I think that would be a popular one with people in this group. Ending extreme poverty. And this one, I chose the word extreme because it's a definition of poverty that's, I believe, depending on the organization, living under $1 a day. Foster understanding and respect. I think that's my personal favorite card. There are lots of different organizations working on this. And now we're on to the green section. Increasing sustainable energy. How we deal with energy is very important for our economic prosperity across the world. And how we use energy is obviously important when it comes to how we treat our environment. That brings us to protecting biodiversity and landscape. Next, we've got design the future of transportation. Elon Musk has some interesting ideas about how to do this with his Hyperloop tube travel and his electric cars, and maybe even designing transportation to different planets. Oh, awesome. I think Debbie raised your hand. I'm just going to check if I can see Debbie. Hey, Debbie, do you want to jump in with your question? I might need Angela's help to, do you need to unmute everyone for that to work? No, that's not great because not everyone is muted.
Okay. Who do you want me to unmute, JP? Sorry.
To jump in if we can get a question. And if Debbie, if we can't get your audio, feel free to type up the question by chat and I'll get to it.
Hang on a sec. So Debbie, I will unmute Debbie 1 second. But I think they can unmute themselves. So I'm just on the phone with a student who's trying to get on. Debbie. Debbie, what does your iPad say? Okay, I'm going to unmute everybody, but if we could just, the background noise. Okay, Debbie, you're good?
Okay, Angela, let's go back to mute all. And if Debbie, if you could ask your question by chat, we'll do
perfect.
This part of the exercise because we're very, very close to the end. Next, we've got manage the planet's waste. I said earlier that improve mental health is my most popular card. This is my least popular card, unfortunately. Maybe you feel differently. And create new food and food systems. We've got 9 billion people on the planet in the year 2050. How will we feed 9 billion people? It might require some changes. Would you like to work on that? Okay, chat's here. I can hear him. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear JP. I can hear you, JP.
Okay, good. So let's keep going. Can you mute all again, Angela? Great, thank you. All right, so you've toughed it out so far. We've got 4 more challenges to go. It's called Communicate Ideas and Emotions. Is this a challenge that interests you? Next, master tools and machines. There are tools and machines that exist now. There are some that need to be built. There certainly will be a lot of tools and machines that will change in the future. We need people to operate, create these. Create meaningful experiences for others. You can think about all the opportunities to create service. Create meaningful opportunities and experiences for others is all about service. What do you mean by communicate ideas on your list? Oh, Jenna, thank you for pointing that out. You are not the only one with 25 items on your list. These 4 new cards, I forgot to mention, are new. So I don't have them on the list. I need to update that list. Thank you for pointing that out. I forgot. Could you please add them? So you know what, I'll go back and take a bit more time. I'm really glad you told me that, Jenna, because now it's gonna make more sense for everybody. Communicate ideas and emotions. To answer the question about what do I mean, every one of the challenges is a how can we? How can we get better at communicating ideas and emotions? I'll give you an example. There are, what I wrote on the card here is there are thousands of people and organizations with a story to tell. They want to change the world in some way. They're looking for followers, fans, and customers. Can you make their story come to life? Can you capture the hearts and minds of people that they can help? So I hope that that can help prime some ideas for you. And Michael, sorry that you were thinking you missed a page. That was completely my fault. Luckily, I was saved by Jenna. So here's what we've got so far. The new one is communicate ideas and emotions, master tools and machines, create meaningful experiences for others. And next we have inspire through art. How can we inspire through art? And that's it. This is the last card. The last card features a set of instructions. So here's what I want to do next. 3 things. 1, I want to share with you the broad categories we went through. 2, I want to get your reactions to that quick exercise that we did. How did you find it? 3, after this, Angela will set us up into small groups of 2. And in each group, I'm going to ask you to share with your peer which challenge did you pick as your favorite one. So some of you already have a favorite one picked. You can just tell intuitively. Some of you may have 4 or 5 that are rated a 5 out of 5, so you may want to pick one. And the prompt, I'll repeat it later, but the prompt will be, why did you pick that challenge? And if you have time, you can add how you would contribute to it. So if you picked redesign the healthcare system, you may say, the reason I picked it is because I'm passionate about this topic. I had a family member that went through a very difficult time understanding and navigating the healthcare system because of their illness. And the way I want to contribute to it is I'd like to use my strength as a collaborator to get multiple different departments in a hospital to communicate more effectively. That would be one example. Carly is really quick at typing and she's provided those last 3. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so those are my 3 things I'd like to do. So what were those broad categories? The first one in blue was about health. Now I'm going to go back just to remind myself of what order we did this in. Blue was health. Yellow I called economics. Yellow bleeding into orange. After that we had purple, which was technology. And after technology, we had the color pink, which I called society challenges. And then next we've got green, which was technology, the environment. Green is the environment. And then the last 4 cards, which are the new cards, my informal title for them is all the challenges I forgot. And what that means is that I've done a lot of user experience testing, got a lot of feedback from people such as yourself, from students, and these were the top challenges that they wanted added to reflect a broader set of challenges. So those were the categories. Yes, Susan, I'll send a link about where you can get them on my website. So just to share the story behind them, this is a tool I invented for my clients as a career coach, and I said maybe I can sell these online. So last year I sold 283 decks, and this year I've sold 1,800 decks so far. There's a school board in the south of Toronto, New York, that's purchased a classroom set of these cards for all their 43 schools. And I haven't done any sales or marketing really, besides speaking at a few conferences. So for me, this is my new priority project because the cards are a catalyst for teachers, students, administrators to think about career development differently. So I'll definitely send you that link. Now it's time to pause, and I'd love to have a volunteer either speak about what it was like for them to do the sort, or chat about it. So you can write it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we'll do you can unmute yourself to share what your experience was like rating all those different challenges. I'm okay with waiting, by the way. I'm very comfortable. I've done a lot of facilitation. Waiting a minute or two is okay.
Yeah, waiting definitely makes me uncomfortable, so I'm just going to jump right in here.
Thank you.
For me, going through the challenge was interesting because it got me thinking, but I think I would have liked to read the descriptions that you had. Like, I should have read them more carefully than just, kind of just guess what it was about just by reading the title of it. But it's such a peculiar way to think about what kind of careers you might be interested in.
Thanks for sharing that comment. peculiar is, I think it's a cool word, right? Like, I think it's some positive feedback you're giving me. It is different. I want to change the way we do career development because I think what we're doing now, starting with job titles, is not working. So what we're doing now is what? We're saying to kids, the world needs you. Look at all these problems, challenges, and opportunities. Next, we show them companies working on each challenge. This is a research project that can be quite simple in that you show them companies working on this challenge, you explain to them what those companies are, to quite interesting and deep that they research companies that they're working on. They research companies, they learn about how they work. Next, we find people working at those companies. What were their career paths? All of a sudden, students learn about that careers aren't linear necessarily. Next, we look at, well, those people who work at those companies, what did they learn to be able to do that? What job title did that lead them to? Job titles comes at the end, education comes at the end. Now we do the opposite. For those of you who saw my talk, you heard the story of, now we ask students, what's your best class in high school? Here's where you can study, college or university. Eventually, you figure out, well, what's the job I can get? Maybe, that in that fourth year when you start panicking about entering the world of work, eventually you get to know companies because you apply to a whole bunch of them online. And then later on, once you're deep in your career, you really get, what am I actually working on? So we're flipping the model. Laura, thanks for being willing to do the card sort this way without any background about each challenge. It's not the best way to do it, but I appreciate you doing it just for the sake of this exercise. I will tell you that most students will do it just looking at the front and looking at the picture. And then it's later in the facilitation that I ask them, okay, now you've picked your top challenges. Usually I ask them to sort into 3 piles: the challenges they're not interested in, the one they're interested in, the ones they're very interested in. When they take the pile of very interested in, I get them to flip it over, learn more about it. People such as yourselves, that's not the way it works. You'll already start looking at the challenge. You'll want to look more in depth. That's what I've seen in my experience. A couple of comments from the chat. I think it reminded me of personality colors. Yeah, you know what? You can kind of determine a few things from people based on the colors that they're oriented to. So I get that. Thanks, Janet. I think it'd be great for students to use the cards because there's no really wrong answer. I think just because I'm a little self-conscious, I felt like I put the environment as 1 or 2, felt bad. Would students share these with others? I will say that when I watch people do it, and I've watched a lot of people do this, there is guilt. Every time they kind of look at me looking at them, ooh, I'm putting this in my least interested pile. My answer is clear. It's that you can't work on all the challenges at the same time. That's it. You can't have a meaningful impact working on all the challenges at the same time. It pays to have purpose and a focus. You can work on several different challenges in your career. You don't need to commit to one. Rather, I'd want people to have the mentality of continuously looking for and solving challenges. That's the output. Renee, I hope I got to your question in a way that makes sense. If I didn't, let me know. Susan, I like that it gives students an opportunity to look beyond the basic professions and consider things that pique their interest, especially ones that make them think about how they contribute to society and the world. That's it. Yes, great summary. I want them to know the world needs you. It's a very different message than you better get good grades, or if not, you won't have a good life. It's hard to get into schools. It's hard to get a job. It's very competitive. Failing is bad. Underemployment, unemployment. I know this is heavy, but that's what students are hearing, right? You out of all people see the anxious, nervous students, right? If those of you who are doing the one-on-one type of roles, I want them to have a different mindset, the one that, yes, we need you to contribute to society. Same with the poverty one. You might care a lot, but it's not where your passion may be for a career. Agreed. Renee, yes, thank you. Okay, good. Great.
I was going to add, oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, and then we'll move. Go ahead, whoever said that.
Oh, it's Janet Williams. There's 2 Janets. I just wanted to say that I like that it's service oriented. It's like, it's kind of JFK, not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country motivated. So you're not starting with, what do I want? A big car, a big house, whatever. You're starting with, what are the problems in the world that I care about enough to perhaps dedicate my life to? I think that's a really interesting reversal of at least how I remember choosing my careers.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I don't know if you would like to use the word serve, but it's kind of like you're in service. You're serving the world. I don't know if that connects with what you said, but that's what I've heard people.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The service, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, go ahead, Carly.
Oh, I was just going to add that contrary to what a lot of people have said, this approach actually feels very natural to me. I felt like growing up, both through like college and university, that a lot of traditional sort of career advising didn't really fit with me because I have so many interests. Like, in fact, when you said some people probably had like 4 or 5 challenges that they ranked as a 5, I had 11. And I know you can't pursue all the challenges at once, but I have always been somebody with so many interests that I struggle to choose. And so I have 2 favorite books when it comes to career advising, one of which kind of embraces this approach. And there's this book called How to Be Everything. And it provides a few different models of how people with many interests can build a career and a lifestyle that really suits them. And one of which is about choosing like a personal theme or a mission that once you start to figure out what sort of challenges, I don't think they use that language, but like a personal mission that you want to work on, you start to see how many different jobs fall into that. So even as a teacher, I'm just reading Anne's comment here about how it is hard. And I think certainly you're right, it is hard to be able to give that advice when the job market for teachers in Ontario has been so tough the past few years, or past many years, not just a few years. But I think what I've come to see in that when I've worked with students, the author of this book, Susan, is Emily Wapnick. She also runs a blog called Putty Like. And then this one, which is my other favorite book, is The Renaissance Soul, which is by Margaret Lobenstein. So they're both about career advising kind of things. But the gist of what I'm trying to get across is that I think even in the world of teaching where it is so difficult, job-wise in Ontario, it can be easy to expand people's mindsets of what teachers can do and where teachers can work outside of the school system or in non-traditional roles within the school system. Not that that's going to be everybody's favorite thing necessarily. Some people really do want that full-time job in teaching one grade in a school board or what have you, absolutely. But I think a lot of our advising to students does train people to think more about that end goal and less about what else you can do that actually serves the same purposes in teaching and supporting students or developing future leaders or what have you. Anyways, now I've like rambled on for way longer than anticipated, but thanks all for listening. Not that you have a choice. I'll mute myself again now.
No, thanks for contributing that. It makes me think of a TED Talk I saw about, I don't know if the word the person used, the woman, is a polymath, or she had her own coin. It made me think about your book. It might have been by the same author, How to Be Everything. So there's certainly benefits in focusing, but for those people who like to contribute multiple skills or work on multiple challenges, it's possible to custom create a career more than ever before. In my experience, you get both ends, right? I do a lot of one-on-one work. I get the students who are interested in everything, and I get the students who are interested in nothing. What I like about the sort is that the students who are interested in nothing, the sort works. I force them to be interested in something because I say, sort it into 3 piles. What you're not interested in, very interested in. And it works 99% of the time. I think I had a handful of students who said, no, I just have 2 piles. And that's okay with me as well. Most of the time, Linda, I get people to do some self-awareness work before they look at challenges. So they already are aware of their interests or passions, or maybe their strengths, maybe their values, maybe their skills. That way, when we do this part of the activity that we're about to do now in the breakout groups, they have an idea about what to say. They know, well, I want to be a strong communicator. Or one thing that I'm really good at is writing. Or I'm a very reflective person. How can my reflection skills help me work on this challenge? So I like doing that work before they look at the challenge cards, especially for students who feel discouraged about their lives or who they are or their challenges. Doing the self-awareness work and boosting them and identifying strengths first, they show up to the card sort in a different way because they feel empowered. They already know they have something to contribute. Angela, could you please lead us to our breakout rooms so that each person can share their, number one, their top challenge, I think I'll add this in the chat, by the way, just so we've all got it. It's going to be share your top challenge. 2, say why you picked it. 3, if you have time, share how you would contribute to that challenge. So share your top challenge, why you picked it, and how you would contribute to that challenge. I think if we do this for 6 minutes, it's very fast, but it's going to give us a chance to have that conversation. So Angela, how easy or difficult is that for you to do?
Yeah, so I'm just going to click on breakout rooms, and I'm going to put everybody into groups of 2. And we're going to go into that right now. So you'll see something on your screen. I'm going to open all rooms, and you should be did you get something on your screen, you guys? Yep, there they go. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Okay, so it looks like we're in breakout rooms too, I think here. Oh, there we go. Yeah,
Okay.
so I think just you and I. So in the breakout room, I can broadcast a message to all. So I'm just going to put the 3 things. I'm going to do 1, share your top challenge, correct? Top challenge, and they'll get this message. Number 2, I didn't mean to click enter, sorry. Let me try this again. Okay, so.
And afterwards, can you give them a 30-second warning?
Yep.
And then in 6 minutes? Yeah, okay, great. So I'm gonna go in my group and I'll see you later.
Yeah, go ahead. Share your top challenge. Number 2, share how you would contribute to that challenge. And share why you picked it. Okay.
Hey, Angela, group 2 has 10 people. Is
What?
there a way to get smaller groups of
Oh.
2?
Oh gosh, broadcast. Okay, hang on a sec. I'm gonna close the rooms. Okay, hang on here. They have 2 people? Okay.
Group 2 has
people.
10 people.
10. 1 second here. Maybe I did the math wrong. Hang on. Breakout rooms. Okay, here we go. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, they're just all coming back in. I'll put you guys again. Okay, there we go.
Lost like 6 participants somehow.
Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. I just have to wait 20 seconds because it's taking everybody out. I did 22. I did 11 groups of 2. So let's see. Let's try this again. Okay, here we go. So recreate. Oh, 2 rooms. Oh, we need 11 rooms. Here we go. There we go. Recreate. There we go. Okay, there.
Thank you.
Angela, I was already in breakout room 1.
Yeah,
Me too.
I regrouped you guys. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Because I
Oh,
did the
okay.
math wrong. Can we start?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
I did 2 rooms of 11 instead of 11 rooms of 2.
Okay, I was wondering. It's a lot of people.
Math is not my thing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so share your top challenge, then why you picked it, and then how you would contribute to that challenge. There. Okay, so where am I? I am Hey, Renee. Hey.
Hi.
Hi. I think I'm your partner. I'm the
Oh,
mediator. I'm the mediator, but also your partner. Nice to see
okay.
you. Okay. So, which was your card that was your top challenge?
So I like to prepare future leaders. I think that's kind of part of the course, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, being a teacher, I think that was, yeah, kind of a
Mhm.
given. And the reason why is I think all students have leadership capacity in some way, right? We tend to pigeonhole people into what is a leader, but if we open it up a little bit more, all students have leadership capability. All people have leadership capability, right? And to be able to tap into that helps them realize that success comes in all shapes and forms.
Give me a second, Renee, because someone's asked for help. Give me a second.
No problem.
Hi, guys. Hi. Oh, hey, Lorraine.
Hello.
Hey. Hi. It's Angela.
Hi.
Hi.
I believe I was paired with Suzanne, but I can see her name, but I can't hear her.
Okay, let me
And I
move you.
typed a note, but I didn't get any response
Can
from
I
her.
move
So
you then? I'm going to move you to Renee because I was with Renee, but people are asking me for help. And
okay.
now, okay, so what room are you in?
Room 2.
Okay, so let me move Renee. Tell Renee that I moved her with you. Okay.
Okay.
There we
Okay.
go.
Thanks.
She should pop up. Did she pop
Okay.
up?
Thanks.
There. Hi, guys. Renee, I moved you with Lorraine because people are asking me for help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Renee.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I wasn't connecting with anyone, so I guess it didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess
used to do a lot of writing. I more facilitate student writing. And so, hi, there's Angela.
Hi.
So I like to work with students on creating their own shows where they're actually communicating a message. And I think sometimes the fostering respect, and that is part of what we do. It's part of the message we do. And especially when we go to elementary schools and we take our shows out.
That's great. I'd like to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I lost my track.
Oh, okay. All right. We got through all 3 questions. And so in terms, so you're working special ed then, more of resource.
Yeah, it's sort of a catch-all. I do a lot of different things.
Okay.
But,
and they really like struggle. So yeah, like you know, they just want to lie down, which I totally get it. Everyone wants to lie down in yoga, but it is. I'm always amazed. But I'm like, wow, you're 16. You should be in better shape. I'm a lot older than you.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that in the elementary schools too. You know, some of these kids are just, it's time for gym. They're like, well, it's kind of like you have 2 opposites, like the ones who are yes, and it's usually those who are.
What is your philosophy of movement and that kind of thing? And that interested me more than having to put all my energy into competing with other people. That makes sense. So that's sort of when I gracefully retired. But yeah, it's just interesting how when you're an entrepreneur, often people are attracted to, because it's something they like to do, they accidentally become an entrepreneur. And so they don't always, that's not necessarily the thing that pushes them above all else. Anyway.
Well, let me ask you this, because I don't think I knew much about entrepreneurship when I was growing up. What if we told people about entrepreneurship earlier on? Do you think it would happen less by accident? It would be more purposeful? I know we only have 1 minute, and that's a big question, but what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people in my generation, I think a lot of women fell into it because there weren't a lot of other opportunities. Like if you're not a teacher or a nurse, what are you going to be, kind of thing. So I think I think that's one reason that women particularly fall into it. So yeah, I think that we could be teaching it and not as a dirty word or a, like trying to teach them what that really means. Maybe finding other words for that word as well. It's just like if you're really driven, but there are people who just like getting businesses started. That's what they like doing, and so that's a whole skill in and of itself.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. Yeah, and I acknowledge the dirty word, like sales, for example, is a dirty word.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Sales is really needed. Like I've met some really good engineers that are salespeople now because it's a great thing.
But you know what? I'm an artist, and if I don't sell myself, a comedian has to sell themselves. A dancer has to sell themselves. There's never anything you do. A teacher has to sell themselves. You have to sell themselves to the students every day.
For their attention.
It's like, yeah, and what's your brand? I mean, all these terms that we now use, we didn't use when I was young, but the idea that you have a style and that's good, and like we're always selling ourselves. Humans, that's what flirtation is. It's like, hey, look at me. There's sort of there's something to that for everybody.
Yeah, Janet, loved our chat. I'll wait for your email. See you back. Angela, do you think we've got everybody back?
Yep, I'm just gonna look. Yep, we do. 24. Yep. Everyone's out.
Yes, no, maybe so. I'm gonna assume that we've got everybody back. How about this? Let's do the thumbs up just to give me a little boost. Actually, yeah, thumbs up. You're here. You're listening. Good. You survived. First thing I'll say is thank you for your patience with the technology. That was an experiment. Carly, you said the breakouts were your favorite part. That was our attempt at taking advantage of the breakouts. Angela, you did a fine job. We readjusted throughout. I know some of you got kicked out. You started a conversation, you had to restart. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. Here's what we should do next. I'm going to answer your questions, and I'm going to wait for you to send more questions. The way that I'll do it is I'm going to share those questions on a Word document. Here it is now. Kathy and Barb, I can only see your screens, but can you give me a thumbs up if you see this Word document? Yep, thank you, great. Anne asked me, have I done this with locally developed class or with students who are MID? Can you tell me about both of those? Anne, what's a locally developed class and what's a student who's MID? I'm sorry, I don't know the acronym.
So MID stands for mild intellectual disability. So they would be on the lower end of the percent, like their intelligence percentile would be very low on like Wechsler scale, stuff like that. So a lot of these kids will go right to the workplace. They might do a vocational program at something like George Brown College. In locally developed class, it's the kids, it's you know how we have academic, we have applied, and then we have locally developed or workplace bound.
I see.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for teaching me. I knew I was going to learn something tonight. That is one thing already, so I appreciate you defining that.
But another concern of mine is students who are developmentally delayed, so in the self-contained classes, that some of them may be able to work, say, in a coffee shop. But I just want something more for those kids of mine than pushing shopping carts or doing something like that, but something that they feel like they're solving the world's problems, but they may not have the capacity to do it in such a grand way, like being a social media manager or all those things that seem really interesting. How do we do that for them?
I just want to intervene here and say my sister's developmentally delayed, and my mom and her started a business 30 years ago that now employs over 50 developmentally delayed adults. And what they did was my sister liked baking, so they started something called Lemon and Allspice. It's out of Toronto, and it's a catering business. So
that's wonderful.
So I mean, they're high enough functioning that they can work in those in that circumstance. But and there's now a model of that here in Guelph, where I live now. My mom came and helped them sort of start a coffee shop that runs out of the library. So I think that if you The cards might have to be a little different, perhaps, but I think that if you teach them, you would probably be able to take the ideas, like what's the equivalent that this group population could contribute, you know. And I think that there's the possibility there. So obviously Special Olympics is a huge outlet for those kinds of things too.
Thank you.
Okay, and great question. I think this is an important concern because you want a tool that is equitable and that everyone can use, albeit in different ways. My answer to you is that there's a lot of different groups experimenting with the challenge cards now with different groups. They've asked me, how does it fit? I said, here, take some and go out and tell me how it works. I volunteered with a group called U-Turn here in Ottawa that works with Crown Ward kids who have been through horrible personal experiences. And so they're currently experimenting with the model. I also developed a career journal that goes along with the career challenge cards. So people are using those in conjunction, and they're doing research now about how it works. In my personal experience, I've done it myself with different groups. There was an elementary school, not to say that working with students who are younger is the same as working with kids who are MID, but just to show you kind of what's going on. There's an elementary school that did a career fair based on the challenges. So instead of having the traditional career fair, you've got different job booths and job title booths, and everyone says, here's my job. You should do my job. And now students think that they know about careers because they've learned about 30 jobs. Instead, this school, what they did is they did the card sort in all their classrooms. This amazing guidance counselor matched people in the community working on their favorite challenge for the class. And then they attended lectures by these people, and they rotated different parts of the classrooms. And when the people spoke about their work, they didn't talk about their job titles. They talked about the challenge that they were working on. Now, why do I share this with you? Going back to the tool itself and your concerns, for these kids, grades 6, 7, and 8, they had to take more time to do the card sort because there were words there that they didn't know or understand. I'll give you an example. The word economic. What the teachers had to do is explain, what does the word economic mean? So that's one thing I wanted to say. Another thing I wanted to say is, my word is cascading. So not all students will work on these big, broad, global challenges, but they will work for organizations that work on a piece of that, maybe for a department that works on a smaller piece of that, for a boss that's taking on one aspect of it, and in their roles, they will get to contribute to it. And you touched on this in your point where you said there's so many different ways to contribute to the challenges. I'll give you an example. Invent new or engineer new medicine. There's a whole set of people working on that. Yes, there are the white lab coat scientists, but there's also someone who is designing the equipment in the lab. There's someone who's cleaning the equipment in the lab. There's a human resources person that hired the team that's designing the new medicine as well. And by looking at the back of the cards, you'll see that I included all sorts of different ways to contribute. You're right, social media manager will not be the right fit for every student, but there are some trade jobs in there. There are jobs that require no education after high school. It's certainly a mix, and there are a lot of jobs you'll see there that need a university education, but it's not exclusively built that way. That's one thing I want to add. One more before I ask you if I've answered your question. My favorite exercise after the card sort is to get someone to create their own challenge card. I used to think when a student would raise their hand and say, hey, JP, you forgot one. I used to think, oh my God, I forgot one. And I felt ashamed and like, oh my God, a student is beating me in this game about the future of work. But then I realized that's the point. When a student says that, they've become a challenge researcher or a problem solver. They've integrated that mindset. They look for challenges, problems, and opportunities. So now I formally get them to do that. And of course, in the journal that I've got with it, people actually draw their own card with a picture, just like mine. There's a title to it, just like mine. And then at the back, they share the background, what the challenge is about. Then they share at the bottom the opportunities that exist, and then they find jobs to populate that challenge. Again, I like this exercise for everyone because it allows them to tailor the challenge method to where they're at in their lives. So I'm not trying to sell you that, I've got all the answers, Anne, but I'm just trying to tell you like what's my thinking been to make this tool work for different groups of people. How useful was that?
I'd be interested to hear how that worked out with the different levels of classes, like to have, say, a class with students on the autism spectrum and Down syndrome, to see like how they take to that. It'd be really interesting to see.
Okay, great. Thanks. Please stay in touch. I'll keep you posted on how that goes. Angela, go ahead.
Just was going to add that we had used some of our groups in our board had used the challenge cards with a variety of different groups. And I think too, when we think of challenge, we think it has to be this grandiose, sometimes saving of the world, or also this big, big thing that I have to be qualified for. But one of the students in the group was intellectually disabled, and he actually had difficulty with people looking at him in a way that was offending him, because he had the emotional capacity to understand that, because he was a little bit disfigured, and he wanted to look at how could we change the mindset of people so that they're not, you know, looking at me in a way that's making me feel, you know, a little less than. So for him, that's how he sees that. And that was his challenge, and that was something that he can contribute. So see what companies now can create that awareness, and that might be through advertisements, that might be through, you know what I'm saying? So it's looking at how they experience some of the challenges and how they might want to change something that's happened from their own lives. Is that making a little bit of sense?
Yeah, it does. Angela, can I do a rapid fire for the last questions we haven't answered before? Because we finish at 8, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see how well I do. Do we have any art-related task cards? Yes, you missed them. They were at the end. And I would argue that the arts can be applied to so many of the different challenges, not just the red cards. JP, do you include various ideas, activities that can be done with students? Yes, I've got a whole lesson plan. I've got a free toolkit that comes with the cards. I've got an online community on Facebook that people join. The toolkit has instructions, videos, other tools. There's the journal that goes with it. JP, I found I struggled with the challenge topics until the last ones. I like 2 of the 4 because they were more generalized. For some people, the red cards really resonate with them. So I'm glad that you said that, Sushma. Where would we encourage students to look for the challenges? Clearly, it's not just in the cards. I have asked students to look at magazines to do that. Some teachers just go and collect all magazines from dentist's office and physiotherapist's office, and then they bring them to class, and then students do a collage out of it. And then they just cut out their favorite article, and then they start looking for challenges within that article. I've done the same thing with the newspaper. I've done the same thing watching the news, watching a movie, seeing all the challenges that they've talked about. I know I'm going fast, but I want to make sure I cover all of these. What do you think about generating different challenges as a class? Yes, love it. That's what I've asked them to do, create their own cards. Sometimes people ask me, how long does it take to do the challenge method? My answer is a very bad answer, which is between 1 minute and 1 semester. And what that means is that for 1 minute, it may be a catalyst for a one-on-one conversation to get a student to feel empowered and to look at careers differently. But by 1 semester, I mean the teachers who are teaching grade 10 careers course, they've redesigned the way they teach the career course based on the challenge method, because they can do things like this suggestion here from, I think it's Lorraine. You can do an actual research project. One school did a deep research project on the future of food related to their challenge card. Your idea, Lorraine, here is that my thought process on this is that if it becomes a project to be shared, it might inspire other students to think about a path that was not previously on their radar. You're right. I would agree with that. How do you get parents on board? So far, parents have been very receptive. You're right that some parents want a very prestigious occupation. You should share with them that even the roles of doctor and lawyer will become extremely fragmented in the future, so that doctors don't have the same types of roles that they have now. All those roles will be broken up into smaller pieces. What we want kids to know is, how can I solve the different problems that doctors solve? Even a great surgeon, if you're such a good surgeon, within 5 to 10 years of being a great surgeon, you'll be asked to do other things like, can you be an administrator in the hospital that changes the way that we operate? Operate's a bad word to use, that to change the way we run our surgery department. So you'll constantly be working on different challenges beyond just simply being a doctor or a lawyer anyway. So far, parents I find have been very receptive. Linda also asked, does this work for grades 7 and 8? I did write them for grade 9 reading level. So grade 7 and 8, I think it takes more time, more facilitation from the teacher. But it works. I've seen it work. I've done it myself, and that there was that career fair example that I shared with you as well. Okay, this is the part where I pause because I have big thank yous to say to everybody who participated. You were willing to listen to a different way of doing things. I do have a website that I'd love for you to check out. It's mysparkpath.com. So the name of my company is SparkPath, and the website is mysparkpath.com. I'd love for you to check it out so we can stay in touch. And yes, Anna can follow up and tell you how it's been working with students with different needs. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you're using the challenge method, what you think works, doesn't work. I might not have had, yeah, exactly, and that's the website. Oh, by the way, it will change in like 2 days. The website's gonna look different, FYI. Thanks for already being there. But if we didn't get a chance to talk, or if you wanna talk further, you can email me at jp@mysparkpath.com, especially if I haven't answered a question that you've got. I'm very happy and willing to answer it. So thanks to everybody, and thank you, Angela, for the opportunity again to come speak to this group. I'm thrilled that I think we were 24 people at one point on the line. So I'm really thrilled that everybody participated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JP. We appreciate having you here. Refocusing our lens on not just job titles is so key, especially in the world that we're living in. And the other thing that we didn't mention too much here is that it reduces a lot of anxiety with those students. I don't know, you may have mentioned it because I was going in and out of helping students. I find it really reduces the anxiety of the students that want to have their life figured out. So it really does. I don't know if you have time and you wanted to stay a few more minutes, but I know I always respect people's time. So if you can't, that's fine. And I also thank everybody for coming on board. And it's so nice to see your faces, because this is the first time I think I've seen most of their faces. Usually we're on a different teleconference. So if you have to go, enjoy the weekend and continue emailing me if you have questions. If JP can stay on, that's great if you have questions. If you can't, JP, that's also fine as well. And thank you for your time.
Okay, why don't we do a clean split? To everybody who needs to leave at 8 and ghost everybody, thank you, I appreciate it. And to everybody who wants to stay, I'll be here.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, JP. Let's see. Take care. Thank you, this was awesome. Good, thank you. I'd like to ask a question. I'm gonna email you. Okay, good. Just check. Okay. So did anybody have a question for JP? And thank you for staying on for a few extra minutes, JP.
My pleasure.
Eleni does. Yeah, go ahead, unmute yourself, Eleni. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go. Oh, wait, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Now
yes.
We can, yes.
Sorry to bother you. I don't know if if you can answer this. I watched your video and I had 2 sort of questions. I was wondering, since you look quite young, how you came up with this and the system, because it's quite interesting. And my other question was, I work in a First Nation school, so I'm wondering, a lot of my students, well, not a lot, but some of them are those that don't know what they want to do. Others, have to work to support their families, and they just I believe Anne was saying, they just don't have the most ambitious career ideas, and they just want to get into the workforce and make money ASAP. So I'm just wondering what ideas you might have for them.
Yeah, for them to be successful, the best outlook for them to have is what problems that they can solve. And then if you can get them interested easily by doing something like the cards and creating their own card, I think that gets them engaged with a new way of doing things. Once you've got their attention, then you can help them work backwards to say, well, how much would I get paid to do that? What do I need to do to be able to do that? And then you can kind of compare and contrast different opportunities. I was with Cambrian College in Northern Ontario, and we did a few events there, both in Sudbury and on Manitoulin Island with different parents and families. And I think the challenge, well, I'm biased, right? I'll say the challenge method was well received, but I think it clicked. It worked for people to generate that first interest. To go back to me, fair question. I studied psychology. I worked for 3 years for a consulting company. Then I studied industrial organizational psychology. I did a master's degree. Industrial organizational psychology is about the science of work, and that led me to do consulting in human resources. So I studied in Manchester in the UK for my master's. I came back to Montreal for 2 years, and I lived in Pittsburgh in the US for 2.5 years, working for a company called Development Dimensions International. And I consulted with a lot of different organizations. I like to say that I work with some of the most loved companies in the world and some of the most hated companies in the world. And I learned a lot. So I work with the YMCA, Care Canada. I worked with petroleum companies, energy companies, Walmart. And what I was seeing in all of these different companies is that they were focused on solving these big world challenges. And I was inspired by a quote from someone at Google named Jamie Cassapp. He's their education evangelist. And he said, don't ask kids what they want to be when they grow up. Ask them what problems they want to solve, and ask them what they need to learn to be able to do that. Carly's nodding. I hope you've heard that before. So I got really motivated, right? So I said, man, I got to start asking this to the students. And I was asking them, what problems do you want to solve? And they had no answer because we haven't taught them to think about career development in that way. So what I did was I read all the future of work books, blogs, experts, futurists. I found all these lists, which I have all these resources, by the way, my toolkit that I give to people, where did I pull this information from, right? I just read all of that stuff and condensed it into a deck of cards that would be understandable for someone who, in grade 9. And I just compiled it and got it all together. And like I said earlier, one of my worries was that, do I have them all? You know, but then I realized that that's not what's important. It's just giving people a taste and a flavor that made sense. So that's sort of how I got to where I am now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have a question or something they want to share? Mary Beth?
Yes. Hi, I watched your video and I was inspired yesterday, and I thought, wow, what an awesome way to think of, the world of work. And you're right. I mean, in the workplace, people are putting out fires, solving problems, challenges on a daily basis, and connecting that with guidance was brilliant. I was just wondering, I know you mentioned a scientist in Pittsburgh in your video, and I was just wondering, was that person an undergrad?
When I worked with her, she was in high school.
Oh.
And yeah, but she's very bright, right? She's very bright. I work with students who are all sorts of places in life.
Okay.
She was in high school. Now she's in university. I think I might have said in the video at Penn State, and she's confident. She's very confident now because she knows I just got to work on stuff that's important. And then she's like, I'm constantly figuring out what's important. And by important, I mean, is this an important problem to work on? Is this an important challenge? And she's constantly scanning. Every time you show up to class differently, right? Because you're listening for challenges, problems, and opportunities. And your professors aren't talking to you about career development that way necessarily, right? Because a lot of them are academics. Only a handful of them are practitioners. So you need to do this on your own for yourself. And she's very confident because she knows that she can progressively build on, because at her age, she can only make a small contribution to like research based on what she's learned, but she knows she'll be able to take on bigger and bigger challenges in her life.
Yes. So this brings me to my next point. I work at the college level, and I have an interview with a university. So part of my task would be to inspire undergrads who, are not sure about where they want to go after graduation. So would the card sort be appropriate, or the cards? Or
yeah, you know what? I wrote them for grade 9, but the people who are buying them the fastest are universities and colleges. I was in the US for the National Career Development Association conference in Phoenix 2 or 3 weeks ago. I brought 80 decks of cards with me, and they sold out. I sold out 80 decks. People in colleges and universities, they get it. They know they need a different way. If I was you, I'd show up to the interview with the card sort and blow their minds with a different way.
Okay, how fast can you send it to me?
Send me a little note and I'll make sure it gets there super quick. When's your interview?
Monday.
Yes, absolutely.
1 week from today.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
All right.
Thank you.
Do I get a discount if I'm part of this group?
My God, Angela, we should have negotiated a discount. Jeez,
Not too late.
Next time.
They're not expensive though, the cards at all. They're not expensive. They're very reasonable.
How much are they?
they're $40 each, but if you buy a classroom set of 30, which is more appropriate for high schools, the price goes down to $14 each, or $14.30 each.
And administrators are all very eager to put this into place. They have, we know, through the guidance and career education but the budget or the co-op budget, they always find money.
I was going to ask you, have you tried it in Canada with universities?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I don't know.
Or colleges?
Yeah, you know, McGill has them, U of T has them, Queens loves them. Queens, I think, is the most excited group.
Wow.
I haven't asked them permission to use them to use their names on my website, but I should, because they've given me good feedback so far. But eventually, I need to learn a lot of stuff about marketing and sales. Right, I'm kind of an entrepreneur by accident, right? But I think I'll get there. Carly went to Queens, and their career development people are awesome. Well, I thought they were awesome too. I thought they were wonderful. So I hope that they can help me grow this idea that I've got.
Yes. So the U of T Career Development Department uses them already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that where you're interviewing?
Well.
Oh, I'm not supposed to. Sorry, we're getting too personal. Okay, let's keep that secret. You can email me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you who has them.
Good luck, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
JP, if I was wondering if I could ask a question too, just about the practical application and delivery of this is kind of a shift in program, right? So I'm just wondering, like, I know in the board that I work for, all of our secondary schools use my blueprint. So do you know of any schools or any programs that are currently being used in conjunction with your challenge cards and, you know, this shift in thinking?
Yeah, why don't you go first, Angela?
Our board purchased them all, our York Region District School Board. We purchased them for our guidance and career education at almost every school. And so we are, the expectation is that we put that into the guidance and career education program. It's being rewritten, as you, those of you in part 2 know a little bit more about it than part 1. And so with this lens in mind, right? So I'm sure that that's something that will be coming with all boards, I think, right? I would imagine, I would hope so, but I know our board,
Yeah, just to go back to the tool, you know, one concern that people have had with my blueprint, you're welcome, Poonam, maybe we can talk later. One concern that people have had with my blueprint and career cruising is that the model focuses on the job title matching. So that may be my personal least favorite part of the tool, but there's so many other things that are useful about the tool that I certainly think they could work in conjunction. For example, once you would get to the level of talking about job titles later in the process, that's a great research tool to use to find out more about certain occupations.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, JP. I'm still here. I said I was leaving, but I decided to lurk in the shadows for a little bit.
Oh, great.
I'm perusing on your website, which is totally awesome, by the way. And I'm just wondering, you had mentioned something about you having like packages of lessons or how you deliver it or how you do this in the actual careers course that a guidance counselor could be teaching. Is that on the website?
No, only when someone buys the cards, then I send them all the information, a link to the Facebook group.
Okay, so
the toolkit.
that's not a separate purchase. That comes...
It comes with it.
Got it. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Barb, you gave me such a nice smile through the whole session. I'm hoping that you'll ask a similarly energetic question. You've encouraged me with your nice smile throughout this whole evening. Not to put you on the spot. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
So JP, I just have a question. I'm just thinking sort of big picture, and I see this as a huge undertaking for everybody. And I'm wondering, how could we, I guess, in-service staff, just to kind of have them start to wrap their heads around it too, in terms of when they're delivering curriculum, sort of how to start getting kids to think about these challenges, so sort of presenting it in a different way. So my mind is just racing big picture as opposed to just the careers classroom.
Yeah, can you tell me more? Are you thinking more about how do we kind of change the curriculum, or how do we start working with students in that way, or both?
Well, see, I think like I work in a disadvantaged population or group, and our kids don't really have. When we talk about activating prior knowledge and what have you, a lot of our kids really don't see school as a relevant something that they need. And in the end, they're again going out to work, or they're going to go move back to Portugal, or what have you, different things. And I'm wondering, how do we make it relevant? How do we present? What are some strategies we can give teachers to start getting kids to think in terms of these are challenges, this is where you can have an impact? I'm not looking for an answer because I'm just throwing this at you and you're just probably thinking, where's she going with this? But I'm just trying to wonder, how do we start to look at curriculum in a real, I guess, in a different light, in a different way? And then how do we tie this into it?
Well, from the curriculum perspective, I've thought, man, I should stop everything I'm doing and just write a new curriculum and then see who uses it. But again, I don't really know how to write a curriculum. All of you would know more about that than I would. So it's not.
More the teaching of it, like, so sort of what strategies. But I guess it's just a bigger question than it. Yeah.
I mean, what I would love is if you would join my little group and then you would share your ideas with me, or even better. Well, that's not better. Equally as good. Asking me for tools and resources and lesson plans. That's how I've grown the toolkit so far, by people asking for things and requesting them, and then I go back and I make it. So that's one part. Another part is I think I should write more of a book or an ebook that's helpful as from a beginning to an end version of the idea. I have thought about curriculum. I'm connected with a few people in career development that would jump at the chance to write a curriculum with me. I don't know what's the point of building an alternative curriculum.
Yeah. Well, I think, the curriculum is what it is, but I think sometimes it's also the questions, or sort of the way teachers can generate kids thinking about the content differently. Well, so how do we pose those questions? And I guess, what are those questions? And how do we teach teachers how to develop those questions?
The way I teach teachers is I get them to do the card sort. And the way teachers do it is I've got I don't know if this would meet your needs, but it's just one less, like, what do you do with 75 minutes? With students and the cards in front of them? I've got a whole way of walking them through that. I'll give you an example. I start the session by saying, how many jobs do you know about? The same way that I did in the keynote, right? So they know about 5, 10, 25, and then how many jobs are out there? I've heard 20,000, I've heard 40,000. And then we just break it down from there. Often the teacher shares their experience of the challenges that they worked on in their career, whether it was their first part-time job or something else they did before teaching or while they were teaching. And then we get the kids to actually do the card sort. So that's how the activity starts. But the question you're asking, I'm thinking about a lot. I don't have all the answers yet.
Oh, neither do I. I'm just a thinker, so I don't feel any pressure at all to answer them.
No, I'm thinking about it. I hope you and I can stay in touch so that I can update you on what I'm thinking about when it comes to that.
Okay. And I guess the other question is too, so are you available for PD for staff?
Yeah.
I guess what's your price, being a publicly funded board?
Sure. Well, I think, Angela, that's where we met, right? When I came down to do I think we had half a day session where I did the challenge method and I presented some tools. So I certainly do that, and I want to do even more of that.
Okay. Perfect. Angela, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
So our board got JP, not our particular school. I imagine you can, investigate the price for that as well. But I might start with the instructional services, like the guidance consultant, perhaps, if you have one with your board, because that way it could, trickle down, and, all of the schools can know about it and then start purchasing for their own schools, right? Instead of just one school.
Yeah.
More of a big board picture. That's right. Because I think you came in from our board, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
thank you, Rosie. Carly, you made the link between outside of career development with all of the other courses, which I love. So some non-careers teachers, what they're doing is they post all the pictures they post all the cards on the wall with sticky tack. And then if you're in math and someone says, why does this matter? Who cares? Why am I learning this? Then you can show them, in the future, collecting and using big data will be one of the most exciting opportunities you can work on, because everything will have the internet, and that's going to generate data, and someone will need to read the data, like in the matrix, all the numbers, and make sense of it. And I'm helping you make sense of the numbers in this way. And then like, it's just like, I'm really glad you brought that up, because inquiry-based learning, connecting what people are learning with what's really going on in the workplace, if I was teaching, I would imagine that's hard to do. The challenge cards help that make it a little bit easier. So thanks for pointing that out.
So, no more? Okay. Thank you for sharing, Teditas.
My pleasure.
From Juka. So thanks again, JP. Really appreciate it, your time. And thank you, everybody, for staying on, and the valuable insights and questions you had for JP as well. And I'll make sure I send you the recording, JP.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time, your energy, your participation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Hope to stay in touch.
Thanks. Bye, JP.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.